morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Sir Meerkat, and welcome back to the Moto Meerkat channel. Now, we've seen countless numbers of YouTubers making prediction videos throughout January and even back in December, you bloody bunch of loonies. But you haven't yet heard what the Meerkat thinks, have you? And obviously, my opinions are practically gospel when it comes to motor racing, aren't they? So be expecting the Bible too, with with Good to Steiner soon. I don't know. Psalm chapter 3 verses 6 to 7.
Listen, I'm fucking tired of being fucking fucked up all the fucking time.
So today, let's have a bit of a chinwag all about 2021 and the, of course, upcoming season, as I rank the teams from 10th to 1st and the drivers from 20th to 1st. But don't forget to leave your predictions down in the comments below, as I'd love to see what you all think on the topics as well. But let's first start off by looking at the Constructors Championship standings, or my thoughts on them, shall we? Shock! Horror, I don't think that Williams will finish last. It'll be the first time since 2017 that has happened. Now, Haas have had so much time to try and figure out the issues with this car. They even, for a few years, kept on Roman and Kevin to try and just keep the team dynamic going and try and fix the car, but they haven't been able to do it. And for 2021, they've even ditched the two drivers now. They've given up on them. They'll have two rookies from Formula 2. So it's going to be their first time in Formula 1 car, or at least in Formula 1 car in racing conditions. So the chance of the car's issues being fixed have fallen to practically zero, in my eyes at least. And I think it's super unlikely that either driver is going to be able to score any points, leaving Haas in last place. Which honestly could be the straw which breaks the camel's back on the whole Haas situation, in my opinion. But with the money that Mazepin is now pumping into the veins of Gene Haas, maybe they'll live to battle again in 2022. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. As I said just a second ago, I believe Williams will not be the laughingstock of Formula 1. Finally! And I think that the team are finally going to score a point. Wow! Otherwise, not really much different to 2020, to be honest. Haas are just going to be a bit worse. So let's move on. Alfa Romeo in 8th. They've just kind of consistently been meh, haven't they, kind of throughout their Formula 1 period? And I reckon it's going to continue in 2021, finishing 8th, just the same as they did last year. Their car hasn't looked the best, and now coupled with this terrible Ferrari engine, it's gotten even worse. Maybe Giovinazzi can try and pick up some more points this year, or maybe he'll just crash in Spa for the 3rd time in a row. Who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. And in 7th place, AlphaTauri, another team which is unmoved from the 2020 standings. Now, although the team has been going from strength to strength year on year, with Gasly winning at Monza in 2020, what an incredible moment that was. The car has still been relatively inconsistent, so although they'll continue to surprise at some races in 2021, in my opinion anyway, I think that the midfield battle is just going to be too tightly fought, and I don't think they're going to be able to get any higher than 7th. And to add to that, they've chucked a rookie into the mix with Tsunoda partnering Gasly now. They've kicked the hard base compilation off, but it will be interesting to see how they compare, how Tsunoda beds in, but I don't think he's going to do as well as Kvyat did last year, which then equally means that they're probably not going to get higher than 7th, are they? Now, continuing with another poor year, I reckon Ferrari will be outside of the top 5 again in 2021. Now, I'm really hoping that Sainz will take to that Ferrari like a duck to water, but after getting out of the McLaren, I'm really not so sure he will, to be honest. And although Leclerc might be able to rustle up some surprise finishes like he did for us this year, Sainz, I think, is going to be a bit more of a burden on the points front, leaving the team closely battling in the midfield with the rest of the lot, but ultimately staying where they finished in 2020. Because why would Ferrari be pumping resources into the car for this year that they know is already unlikely to be good when they can have a fresh start in 2022 with the new rules and regs? It just makes sense. You know what? I reckon Alpine could cause some upsets this year, with Fernando Alonso finally re-entering the sport and taking the helm of this kind of newly founded team. But will they be able to challenge Aston Martin or McLaren? I just can't see it. Now, I will say that Renault engine has been getting better and better alongside their sleek bodywork. I'm thinking a couple of podiums are possibly on the cards for this year, but as long as they keep that slim nose on the car, I'll be happy. And all in all, I think the whole package at Alpine is just getting better and better. but I don't think they'll be able to move up in the Constructors. Now, the choice between 3rd and 4th was a really tough one, but I decided to say f it and just go with my gut. McLaren had their best Constructors finish for quite some time last year, and they have so many positives to take from that and push forward into 2021. As they now have Mercedes engines powering their beasts, but they have confirmed that they are having slight difficulties with fitting it into the chassis, which could cause some teething problems and maybe even problems further down the line, leading to more DNFs and possibly less points. A nice reminder of Daniel's final season in Red Bull. Speaking of which, they of course now have the Honey Badger on board with them as well, who I'll talk a little bit more about later on. But the partnership between himself and Lando, although very, very memeable for us here out in the F1 online community space, it could mean that this relationship becomes unconsciously more important than the results that they're getting. We'll have to wait and see how they deal with that vibe. Aston Martin. Wow. Another kind of new team. I reckon they'll up their game even further from last year to this year than they did from 2019 to 2020, which is saying something. And this is why I think they will be able to switch places with McLaren in the Constructors. And this is all due to the continued influx of money from Daddy Stroll and his consortium of daddies, allowing them to further build on that beast that was the pink Mercedes and create now, I guess, the green Mercedes? They've also managed to snap up 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel, so I reckon he'll be able to pick up some great points for the team this year. I'd love to see him back on the podium. I definitely think he's going to get there. And then with Stroll alongside him, although he's not the best driver in the world, he's definitely continuing to improve, and I reckon he could even be pretty close to Seb on points this year. I bet you weren't expecting that. Red Bull just seem to always finish second. Now Ferrari have decided, nah, we don't want a title fight. We're going to go see what Williams are doing over here. They've, of course, still got Verstappen at the helm, who is pretty damn good, I think we can all agree. But I think that Perez will be a fantastic guy to have alongside him, and he will be the key to bringing Red Bull ever closer to Mercedes. But will they beat them? Nah, they just won't, will they? Who would have guessed it? Do I even need to say anything? They're simply gods amongst men, aren't they, Mercedes, really? They're going to continue their domination and get another world title. I can just see it. It's pretty obvious. Right, there we are. Here's all 10 Constructors. What do you think of my thoughts and opinions? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. So now we're done with them, I'll try and quickly rattle through the drivers. So where will these plucky bunch of lads end up placing by the end of the season? Let's get on with it. He didn't win a championship on his way to Formula 1, and he's in a Haas. He won the Formula 2 title last year, but he's still in a Haas. He will have gained a lot more experience in that Williams car now, but the Williams car still isn't great, and he hasn't really showed me too much to say that he'll be able to do any better this year than he did last year, so I still think he's not going to get any points. It honestly saddens me to see George still at the back after watching him lead that race in Bahrain. Oh, God, I miss it. 2022 though, mark my words. But hey ho, I think he'll do a great job of continuing to improve Williams, and I do reckon he will finally get his points with them this year. Come on, George, I believe in you. He's really just been pretty meh throughout his Formula 1 career, hasn't he? And I think it's going to stay that way in 2021 before he will swiftly be axed by Alfa for 2022, where some young gun from Formula 2 will probably come up, I reckon. Whoa! And then he'll retire. I reckon it'll take Yuki a little bit of time to get used to Formula 1, but at AlphaTauri's strong tracks, he will be able to pick up some good points and possibly could even have a standout performance, maybe a podium, I don't know. But overall, I don't think he's really going to be anywhere near his teammate. Yes, although it saddens me, I really do think Carlos will drop down the pecking order this much. That Ferrari car is an absolute dog. It's not suited to him, it's suited to Charles, and he's going to have the same difficulties that Seb had last year. I think Sainz may have made a really bad decision in moving to Ferrari, and if he's not given a second chance in 2022 with the rule change and is instead maybe axed for a young gun such as Schumacher, then his F1 career is never going to be the same again, and he's going to be absolutely kicking himself that he didn't stay with McLaren. Now, of course, as I said, I really hope this doesn't happen to him. I really like Carlos Sainz, but I can't see him being even a week in, week out points contender, if I'm honest. Now, Ocon has actually been pretty quiet since he rejoined Formula 1, unlike how he was when he was back at teammates with Perez. And he's sort of been able to prove himself as well, getting that podium at Sakir, if we all remember. But otherwise, overall, he's been pretty uninspiring. So although that car will be slightly better, he will be outshone by his teammate, which is expected from a man with 2 World Drivers' Championship. But I think he is still going to finish far below him in the standings, and another driver I feel is unlikely to stay in F1 much longer if he doesn't start to put his finger out. As I said earlier, Pierre is definitely going to outclass his teammate, as he did with Daniel last year, because he's a top-class driver in my opinion. But I don't think he'll get quite as high up in the standings, because I don't think he'll have quite the same amount of luck that he had last year. Although he, of course, had to put himself in that position and race his absolute socks off, it was ultimately luck that kind of placed him into that position to get the win in Monza, and those 25 points were super helpful in bringing up the standings, so I think without that he might drop just a little bit. Similarly to last year, he'll pull some cracking results out of that prancing donkey, but not enough to get any higher in the standings, I don't think. Sorry, Lando stans, I just don't get the hype myself. Don't get me wrong, he is a brilliant driver, but even with Danny Ric being in a new car, I still think he's going to finish higher than him in the standings. Now, of course, Lando has fantastic quali pace, but in the race, he just isn't quite there yet still. We've been seeing him get better and better, such as his podium in Austria in 2020, of course, but I still think he's got a little way to go, and he's a slight outsider in that midfield battle. Stroll has been consistently improving year on year. You've got to give him that. And in the green Mercedes for 2021, it should assist him in continuing that trajectory, allow him to possibly get another pole, some more podiums, or maybe even a win. Okay, I'll stop there before people's heads explode. Returning to the sport this year, it's good to see him back on the grid, and I reckon he'll do pretty well in that Alpine car, scoring consistently and getting on the podium at least once, I reckon, being well ahead of his teammate, but still ultimately being disappointed, as Alonso always is. Now, this is probably my biggest change up from the 2020 standings, but I do think Seb will fly in that Aston Martin. Mark my words, he's going to get a win. God, that clip's really going to bite me on the arse if he continues to spin Arla like he was doing this year. But yeah, I think he will continue in assisting the growth of Racing Point, now turned Aston Martin, and I also think he's going to be a fantastic sort of mentor or coach for Lance Stroll. And also, the aero gain from his hair loss should probably gain a 10th or 2. So many positives for Danny Boy, and I do think he'll do super well in that McLaren with the new Mercedes engine. The relationship will quickly and easily be built up between himself and the McLaren team, as it always is with Danny. He's got such a brilliant personality that everyone loves. And I reckon they'll continue their path back to the top, both Danny Ric's and McLaren's. And this is Daniel's final shot to finally make it with a big constructor, and I really hope he makes it count. I reckon he's going to do well this year. Whether he's going to get a win or not, I'm not so sure, but I reckon it could happen. It could happen. Being the resident midfield boy, Sergio is finally moving up to the big leagues for 2021. And I think he'll be able to bring that consistency and sort of quiet killer instinct over to Red Bull. And I don't think he's going to find that second seat quite as difficult as others have in the past. I think Perez will be a fantastic guy to have alongside Max, and I reckon Helmut will have finally found his man who can be close to Max on pace and consistently get those points that Red Bull need to try and challenge Mercedes. But is he going to be as much of a pushover as Gasly or Albon were? Certainly not. If he doesn't play ball as that second driver, I do think he could cause some upset within the team. However, he may not have enough time to really get up to speed in the car when Max has already obviously been on it for years in the team. And if he doesn't, and if he does happen to underperform, then it's probably more likely that Yuki Tsunoda is going to move up into that seat for 2022, which will be very sad to see. And would you look at that, it's Bottas 18.0. Basically, he'll do mediocre and then he'll bugger off. If he doesn't win the championship this year, I will be so unbelievably shocked if he's still with Mercedes in 2022. No, I don't think Max will be able to topple the giant of Mr. Vegan Ham, but he'll still do bloody well as the Red Bull continues to impress. However, could that engine situation with Honda that's going on at the moment throw a spanner in the works over this year going into next year? Only time will tell. Come on, who else did you think I was going to pick for number 1? Lewis will win his 8th title and then hopefully he will retire after that. Come on, Lewis, let someone else have a go in the good car. That's going to piss a few people off. I said he was still going to win. Come on. Well, there we have it. Those are my predictions for both the Constructors' Championship and Drivers' Championship for 2021. What did you think of them? You probably thought they were pretty rubbish, didn't you? Be sure to berate me in the comments, telling me how terrible you thought my predictions were. And be sure to leave your predictions in the comments down below as well, because I'd love to read them. Also, leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and be sure to subscribe to the Moto Meerkat channel down below as well, so you don't miss any of my future motorsport content. And also, if you didn't catch it, earlier this week, episode 15 of the ChatterBox podcast with none other than Formula 2 driver Theo Pourchaire went live on the channel, so make sure you go and give that a little listen if you haven't already. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see all of you Meerkats later. Goodbye, guys!